Well, welcome back. Joining us in the studio this week, we're delighted to have Mr. Rick Anthony, the director of our county's Rec and Parks. Rick, how goes it?
Very good.
Very good.
Yes,
What's happening, Mr. Anthony?
Yes.
Here again. It's been a while.
I know, we've missed you. Well, spring is here, something else we've missed, I think. I think all the snow's gone.
Yeah.
And what better to talk about this time of year than our county parks?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of upgrades going on right now at a bunch of our county parks. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, as the season blossoms, so goes my department. We are just doing a ton of things. The county executive has been so supportive of our department. And so we have capital projects going on in several of our parks like Bell Branch getting a new turf field, Loopers in Pasadena getting a renovation there, and repaving trails and boat ramps, so all the fun stuff.
All the boat
so
ramps.
It's exciting, yeah.
Yes.
It's been very, very exciting, so we're really appreciative of his support.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And one we wanted to talk about in particular today, we want to talk about Mayo. Talk to us about Mayo Peninsula Parks.
Yeah, so you obviously this has been a project that has brought a lot of attention to the department, but the county has owned these parks on the Mayo Peninsula for several years, some of multiple 10, 20-year park purchases that we've had.
Yeah.
And there's always been a design that we would eventually develop these parcels for parks. I think Beverly Triton had a master plan done several years ago that just really never got realized. And so with the push for access, this is not just a local push. This was a federal and state push that people basically wanted to say that they needed access and deserved access to public lands. So we started looking at the concept phase of what it would take to put the infrastructure into the parks, and then we went into a master plan, which is kind of where we are right now, and heading to design. So
Exciting.
it is.
Yeah.
It really is. And, you know, unfortunately, it kind of tied in with everything else going on with the moratorium being lifted and the traffic issue. So I certainly understand some of the concerns, but
Right.
We still feel very strongly that this is going to be a very positive amenity for the community.
Yeah.
Talk about the scope of this in terms of, you know, people are concerned about development, and they're calling the park a development almost the same as like residential or commercial development.
Yeah.
What is the goal, and what actually is the opposition about for the main park?
And you know, this does happen quite a bit. I think there's really some fears, unfounded fears, that these parks are going to generate a ton of traffic. But when you really look at the realities, every single park, with the exception of maybe Kinder, that we have and manage is on a peninsula. It's a waterfront park on a peninsula. So if you look at Fort Smallwood, if you look at Downs, and if you look at Quiet Waters, they are beautiful amenities to the community, and they really don't contribute to the traffic in the fact, you know, with the fact that some of the folks are thinking, are imagining. And we've had a tremendous amount of success. And it is really funny because most of the parks, when they get started in development, there's always the opposition, and people talk about crime and traffic and all of these things. But when the park is done, you see all the advertisement of when they're selling their houses, how the property values go up, how the people are so excited about that. And I feel strongly.
And that happened with Quiet Waters.
Quiet Waters, yeah, exactly. And this is the case. And this is not, again, this is not just Anne Arundel. I've been involved with the National Rec and Parks Association. It's across the nation. These things happen, that there's a perceived fear of bringing in more crime or bringing in more traffic or bringing in the outsiders. And that just really doesn't really pan out to be the reality. And so most people, once they get built, in 10, 15 years later, they're very excited and happy about having a park that they can enjoy.
And you know this. You live down there. You live near the park. So
I do.
People
I
find
do.
you in the grocery store all the time and tell you what they think.
Yeah, and I got some great neighbors. There are a lot of people that understand the job that I have to do. They're very supportive. They're probably not as loud as the ones that are opposed to the parks, but there's truly a lot of good people in that community that do understand
Shout
what
out.
we have.
Yeah, Beverly Beach.
Shout out.
Yeah. I'm happy to be there.
Good.
Yeah.
So as part of, obviously, you know, we're talking about fears and, you know, reality versus perception, but regardless of what you think is going to happen, you are listening to the citizens. You've had a ton of
Yes.
public meetings and planning sessions. You've
Yes.
adjusted your plans
Yes.
based on those. And I believe right now there's a traffic study going on. What's going on with that?
Yeah, we've had our traffic study done, and then there's a larger study that's going to incorporate some of the findings in our study. And you're right, we have been very attentive to the community's concerns, certainly understanding that we're not going to make everyone happy. But we can really show some valid changes in the program than when we initially had. And a good example, even from the original master plan, which called for several athletic fields and a lot of different amenities.
Amphitheater.
Yeah, it's
Which we're
mentioned,
not gonna-
it's
we're not
mentioned in
doing
there.
the
We're not doing it.
No.
So it's been tremendously scaled back from even that concept. And so the traffic studies obviously had some concerns that they that they brought up, and I think Department of Public Works are moving forward to address them. A lot of it was really revolving around Lock Haven and 214. Those were the primary areas of concern. So
And
we
stay
think
tuned
they're
for
going.
that. We may have some
Yeah,
news
I-
on that coming.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to address those
But there's
issues.
some circumstances that exist on the ground today where the improvements are going to actually alleviate some of the problems that you have on
Yeah.
traffic.
One of the things that we know that's true is that good use drives out bad use. And when you have a park that is not developed, that is not being utilized to the fullest extent, then you have the opportunity for vandals to come in, for people to come in because there's not a lot of people that are witnessing things. So there's an opportunity for bad behavior. So that's one example. By putting in basic infrastructure, by really opening the park up to the public, then you obviously have almost your built-in security system because people are not as willing to be exposed in those areas. And another example, I can give a couple of these examples. One, Beverly Triton, when I first got to the department, was very difficult to have access to. You actually had to have a permit and get permission to get on. So what we were seeing was that people were parking in the communities, in my community,
Right.
especially on a nice
You can't
weekend day.
You can't get in the gate.
You
so
couldn't get in the
park your
gate.
car in somebody's driveway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you saw all of that on a regular weekend basis. And then when we initially opened it up and we started putting signs up, look, the access is on Beverly, it completely eliminated that issue. Now I know in other areas there may be these one-off scenarios where that happens, but I can certainly attest from firsthand experience that we don't have that problem anymore in the community, not the ongoing problem that we had almost every weekend.
And then the sports.
Yeah, and the sports, and most of our parks, especially our athletic parks, were developed quite some time ago, and we have realized that we did not really program them properly when it comes to parking. And that's one of the things that we have rectified in these last few years. And what we were seeing was that even though there may be enough parking for one team that's currently playing, when you have other teams arriving to the game, there was nowhere to park in the parking lot. So what did they do? They parked on the people's streets, on people's lawns, and we have that scenario being played out almost every weekend. So we now program about 80 spots per multipurpose field, which we did a ton of research. We looked at national standards. It wasn't something we just made up out of the blue sky, but certainly it has alleviated a lot of those issues where we're getting people being upset because somebody's parking in the front yard, or just the congestion when you put cars on a narrow road and can't get any emergency vehicles through, or the normal traffic can't get through because there's no parking inside of the park. So that's one of the goals of us certainly implementing the amount of parking that we have.
Well, this is all very exciting.
It's a lot.
So, and I like what you said. Good use drives out bad use.
Yes.
I think that's really important,
It
and
is.
that's the goal with all of our parks.
Yeah.
So
We want everyone to
Yeah.
have fun,
we
Kristen.
do, but we want everyone to be safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, master plan, design work, traffic studies. What
Yeah.
happens next?
So right now in our program, really the only park that is funded for construction is Beverly Triton. We keep the master plan for all the parks, and at some point we hope that it will be phased in where we would move from Beverly Triton to Mayo, and then the South River Farm, which also includes the Mayo Reclamation Facility. But Beverly is going to get probably the first upgrade, and very minimal construction. We are going to put a parking lot in. We are looking at the opportunity to put more environmentally friendly parking, so we're looking at alternatives for that. We'll have a restroom, changing stations, and some basic trail improvements there. So we're excited
Can't wait.
about it.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
All right, I'm going
It
to put you
is.
on the spot. We do this with Rec and
Uh-oh.
Parks people sometimes. What's your favorite park?
Whoa.
Oh, you got to pick your favorite child.
Yeah, I don't think I can
Top three?
say that
It's
right.
Whitewater.
I will have some staff members that would be very
I had to
upset.
ask.
Yeah,
I had
no,
to ask.
I love I think all of our parks are so unique that
There you go.
they all have their own special place
They
in
all
my
have
heart.
something to offer.
My favorite is Fort Smallwood.
That's what my mom
because
says
the
to me
boat
and my
ramp
sister.
and-
You know,
and
I
know what?
love you both.
You know,
That's exactly
Fort
right.
Smallwood, the boat ramp was built, and you're getting a ton of people, a ton of interest in that. I've seen the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
It's exceeded expectations.
Yes.
And guess what? It's on Mountain Road.
Yes.
Which is
the
one of
peninsula.
our worst peninsula roads.
Yes.
And you know, I don't know. I live in Pasadena. I haven't heard anybody say, "Oh, that boat ramp, you know, we just can't get home anymore."
Yeah.
I haven't
Right.
seen. So I hope, and I know you guys are not. You don't want to clog up the roads and make it difficult for
exactly
people.
right.
You want the people in the neighborhood to enjoy the park, and also
Yeah.
the people who are visiting from elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
So it's funny that you said that, because you can look at the history of that particular boat ramp, and if you look at the minutes of the meetings, you see that that was the number one concern. People were afraid that traffic with boats would be lined up outside the gate, and the former director was proposing some sort of reservation system where people wouldn't be, and none of those things have been a reality. And we've had days where we've completely packed the park out. And it's not just the boat ramp now. The county executive opened the swimming beach,
Yeah.
which has been a huge attraction. Fort Smallwood is probably becoming one of our most visited parks that we have in the department. But again, it's a huge success. We manage it correctly. If there's issues, we address them, and that's what we hope to do with all of our parks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all you do
Thank
for our county,
you.
the programming, all our wonderful parks, and we always want to have you back. So don't
Anytime.
wait so long next time. Got
we'll
it?
bring them back
Got
and
it.
Bring
make
it back.
We'll
to
bring
me.
them back and we'll
Yes.
say, okay, the park's done now.
Yeah.
You answer to this. What did you say?
Yep,
What
there
did
we
you
go.
say last year?
I
Happy
got you.
spring to you. Happy Easter.
Thank you,
And
you
we'll be
too.
right back with more Week in Review right after this. Don't go anywhere.